Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka says she's very confident South Africa will get the required support.
As South Africa prepares to be a non-permanent member of the Security Council, the vote is on Friday. All I want for us is to represent the values of Nelson Mandela in that Security Council, to make our presence in that Security Council a moment to relive his values in a multipolar, much divided, trade war-inflicted world. Try to see that in our small way, we can bring about the values that should underpin multilateralism, which we are losing. I am hoping by being there, we will be able to affirm the work of people like Dr. Mukwege by making sure that Resolution 1325 is lived by the values and the work of the Security Council. I am hoping by being in the Security Council, we will make sure that we contribute towards finding a solution to deal with the scourge of non-state actors that are raining havoc in different parts of the world with the kind of violence that we are struggling to contain as nations of the world. I'm hoping by being in the Security Council, we'll revisit the issue of South Sudan, Central African Republic, and make our contribution towards finding resolution in the challenges that is faced by these countries. I am hoping that by being in the Security Council, we will make sure that our contribution will be about pushing for consensus, using our soft power, something that in South Africa we have tried so hard to preserve ourselves, so that when there are disagreements over issues that should unite us, we fight for the middle road that can bring everybody together. A tall order, but let us try and be equal to the giant that gave us our freedom.
To talk more on South Africa's bid for a seat on the UN Security Council, we are now joined on the line by political analyst Dr. David Monyae. Dr. Monyae, thank you so much for joining us on The Globe. Now, what are the chances that South Africa's bid for this non-permanent seat will succeed?
There is absolutely no chance that it won't succeed. It has the full support of the AU, and with an AU endorsement, it means the entire world, most countries will follow suit. And the chances are high, and it's just a matter of working hard to ensure that all South Africa's friends in the African diaspora, the Caribbean, in Latin America, in Asia, are brought on board in terms of discussing with them and ensure that we garner support to fill in the required number.
Now, what would receiving a seat on the Security Council mean for South Africa as a country in terms of international relations, but also in terms of South Africa's role on the continent?
It would definitely boost South Africa's standing as long as South Africa goes back to revive its own constitution and ensure that it lives by example in terms of democratic values and norms and a well-established global system of multilateralism, and ensure that there's a consensus building on key issues that are affecting the world. What the environment that this time around, the third time South Africa gets into the UN Security Council, is quite a different global environment. It's a world that is defined by protectionism, populism, nationalism, that has swept the Europe as well as the United States.
Why is it that no African country has a permanent seat on the Security Council, and does it look like this will ever change?
The major issue is to do with the United Nations that we know since 1945. It was the victors of the Second World War who have defined what we have. The system is outdated. It needs reform. It needs to be restructured to ensure it becomes democratic. It has representation from all continents. So as it stands, Africa is not represented, as well as Latin America is not represented, and the bulk of Asian countries are not represented. And therefore, given the changes that are taking place in terms of global economy, a number of countries that are members of the Security Council should not be there. And other regions such as Europe is overrepresented.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Monyae, let's speak about the issue of the UN's policies being outdated and old. Is there a possibility that the countries, for instance, the continents that are not represented on the UNSC can come together and push for a permanent seat for either of them?
There's been numerous attempts in the past to push for an African representation, and those efforts are still on the table. And Africa on its own, it will not succeed. It has to work with other countries in the global south, and as well as pushing for particularly the friends of Africa in the global south, countries such as China and Russia, to ensure that they are including the developed countries. President Ramaphosa is going to G7 in Canada. I think there is a need to continuously lobby in these important structures in which South Africa is invited into. And at some point, I think change will come, because all agreements in the United Nations are no longer carrying legitimacy that they require.
Dr. Monyae, thank you so much for joining us. We'll leave it there for now. That was political analyst Dr. David Monyae joining us there. Time now for a quick break. More news when we return on The Globe.